Anna's eyes opened to a sea of green. Where was she? Panic tightened her chest. She sat up, her head throbbing. The forest air hung heavy and damp. Sunlight struggled to pierce the dense canopy above. Anna shivered. Her clothes were caked in mud. Thorns tore at her tattered skirt. She looked down at her hands. Scratched and bloody, they told a story she couldn't remember. She struggled to her feet, swaying slightly. Dizziness washed over her. She clung to a nearby tree trunk for support. Deep breaths, she told herself. Try to remember. But the memories were gone, replaced by a void as vast and unsettling as the forest around her. She was adrift in a sea of green with no land in sight. No memory of a storm or a fall or anything that could have brought her here. Then she saw it. In the distance, rising above the trees like a skeletal finger, stood a tower. It was made of dark stone, ancient and imposing. A shiver ran down her spine, a primal fear that whispered of danger. Yet in this strange and unfamiliar place, the tower also offered a glimmer of hope. Perhaps someone, anyone, was inside. Someone who could tell her where she was, who she was. Taking a deep breath, Anna started walking. Each step was an effort, her legs heavy and stiff. But the tower beckoned, a beacon in the green abyss. As she drew closer, the trees thinned, revealing a clearing bathed in an ethereal light. The tower loomed large, its shadow stretching towards her like a grasping hand. Hesitation held her at bay. Something felt wrong, dangerous, but the forest held no other answers. With one last lingering look over her shoulder, Anna stepped into the shadow of the tower and crossed the threshold. The air inside the tower was cold, still, and thick with the smell of dust and decay. The light from the outside world seemed to dim the moment she stepped inside, as though the stone itself absorbed the warmth. Anna hugged herself, trying to ward off the sudden chill. She found herself in a circular chamber, the walls bare except for strange symbols etched into the stone. They were unlike anything she had ever seen, a language both ancient and alien. Anna traced the symbols with her fingers, their edges rough against her skin. A shiver ran down her spine. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. She had a sudden urge to leave, to run back into the forest and never look back. But the forest held no answers, only more questions, and something about the tower, for all its unsettling aura, drew her in, compelled her to climb. A narrow spiral staircase clung to the wall, winding upwards into the darkness. The steps were uneven, worn smooth with age. Anna hesitated, her hand hovering over the cold stone railing. What awaited her at the top? Was it madness, or perhaps something even more terrifying? She thought of the forest, its silent trees holding no answers, only echoing her own fear. Taking a deep breath, Anna placed her foot on the first step. The stone was cold beneath her bare skin. She began to climb, the only sound the soft whisper of her dress against the ancient stone. Up and up she climbed, the spiral staircase seeming to stretch on forever. The air grew colder, thinner, making it harder to breathe. Anna's head spun. The walls, etched with their strange symbols, blurred before her eyes. She stumbled, her hand gripping the railing for support. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and for a moment she thought she might faint, but she pressed on, driven by a force she couldn't understand. The climb was no longer just a physical act. It felt like she ascended through layers of consciousness, each turn of the staircase peeling away another layer of reality. The stone beneath her feet felt oddly fluid, as if the tower itself was shifting around her. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, her every move observed by unseen eyes. As she climbed higher, the light from the top of the tower grew brighter, but instead of offering comfort, it intensified the strangeness of her experience. The air shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence, casting flickering shadows that danced and writhed on the walls. The symbols, once inert etchings, seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the staircase opened into a spacious chamber bathed in an ethereal light. Anna emerged from the stairwell, her legs shaky, her senses overwhelmed. The room was circular, its walls lined with mirrors that stretched from floor to ceiling. Section 4. Hall of Mirrors. Anna stared at her reflection in the countless mirrors, or rather reflections. Each one showed a different version of herself, each one subtly wrong. One reflection showed her with eyes as black as night, another with a cruel smile twisting her lips. One showed her aged and withered, while another depicted her as a young child, her face streaked with tears. The sight sent a chill down her spine, a primal fear that resonated deep within her soul. These distorted reflections weren't just tricks of the light. They felt like glimpses into shattered possibilities, dark echoes of who she might have been or could yet become. She reached out a trembling hand, drawn to the reflection that showed her as a child. As her fingers brushed against the cold glass, a jolt shot through her arm. The image in the mirror rippled, the child's face contorting into a mask of pure terror. Anna gasped and stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. The world around her dissolved into a dizzying kaleidoscope of light and color. The air crackled with energy, and a low hum vibrated through her bones. She closed her eyes, unable to bear the sight of the distorted reflections any longer. Panic welled up inside her, threatening to consume her. She had to get out, had to escape this place before it drove her mad. When she opened her eyes again, the world had shifted once more. She was no longer in the room of mirrors. She stood at the foot of the tower, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Had it all been a dream, a cruel trick of her mind? But even as the thought crossed her mind, she knew with a sinking certainty that it was no dream. Because as she looked down at her hands, she saw that they were still scratched and bloody, the marks of her climb still fresh. Section 5, Trapped in Twilight. Anna found herself back in the forest, the familiar yet unsettling trees surrounding her. The setting sun cast long shadows, twisting the branches into menacing shapes. Relief warred with a growing sense of dread within her. She was outside the tower, but something was different. The forest, once bathed in the warm light of day, now seemed to pulsate with an unnatural twilight. The air hung heavy and still, as if the very breath had been sucked out of the world. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant caw of a crow. She ran, her lungs burning, her legs screaming for respite. Thorns tore at her clothes, leaving bloody scratches on her skin. But she didn't slow down, couldn't slow down. The memory of the tower, the mirrors, the distorted reflections of herself spurred her onward. She had to escape, had to break free from this nightmare. But no matter how far she ran, no matter how desperately she fought to escape, she always ended up back at the foot of the tower. The sun, forever frozen on the horizon, refused to set, casting the forest in an eternal twilight. The tower loomed above her, a silent sentinel, a dark monolith against the dying light, her prison, her tormentor. Exhaustion finally claimed her, dragging her down to the forest floor. She lay there, gasping for breath, her body racked with tremors. Tears streamed down her face, hot and bitter against her lips. She was trapped, caught in an endless loop, condemned to relive the same nightmare over and over again. Section 6. Whispers of Despair. As darkness deepened, the forest came alive with whispers. They slithered through the undergrowth, clung to the leaves, brushed against her skin like icy fingers. They whispered her name, her deepest fears, her forgotten memories. They taunted her with the futility of her struggle, the hopelessness of her situation. She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the voices, but they were inside her head now, echoing in the silence of her own mind. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, morphing into distinct voices, each one filled with a chilling malice. They spoke of ancient secrets, of forgotten gods, of a power that lay dormant within the heart of the tower. They promised her escape, offered her knowledge, whispered of a power she could wield if only she would embrace the darkness. Anna curled into a ball, her arms wrapped tightly around her head, as if she could physically shut out the voices. She didn't understand their words, but their intent was clear. They were trying to break her, to strip away her sanity, to leave her a hollow shell ripe for possession. She was alone, lost in a forest that was both her prison and her tormentor. The tower, with its strange symbols and distorted reflections, held the key to her escape, but at what cost? As darkness closed in, swallowing the last vestiges of light, Anna surrendered to despair. The whispers were all around her now, a chorus of madness, and she could no longer tell if they were real or simply the echoes of her own fracturing mind.